Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Hacker Talk. My name is Philip, and I will be your host today. I got a tip on a new book that teaches you the starting points of finding vulnerabilities, what to look for when doing web pen tests, and also touches upon bug bounties. Joining me today is the security researcher Vickie Lee, the author of the book Bug Bounty Bootcamp, and she's very knowledgeable in the bug bounty space. And today she's our hacker of the episode. Welcome to Hacker Talk, Vickie Lee. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on, Philip. Hi, everyone. My name is Vicky, and I currently work as security engineer at Instacart. I'm also the author of the book Bug Bounty Bootcamp, which is a book which goal is to help beginners get into bug bounties, learn about the different vulnerability types that are common in web applications, and help them find their first bug.
Awesome. Thank you for that overview. But I'm interested, and I'm sure our listeners are too, like, what's your background and how did you end up in security and why security?
I think security is just a very cool field. So I was studying computer science in college actually, and I fully intended to become a software engineer instead of a security engineer. But I got interested in security through my university courses. So I started to learn about computer systems and different parts of network security. That's sort of how I got my start. And I remember, the first time I saw a buffer overflow in my computer systems class. And that was just really, really cool. So I started to learn individually in my free time about security and eventually started bug bounties as a way to learn more about web security and just the infosec field in general. And once I started hacking on bug bounty programs, it really helped me learn about web hacking and web application security in general. And that's how I got into my current field, which is application security and product security.
How was your first interaction with bug bounties and your first experience reporting a bug?
I think I was like one of the few lucky unicorns who was able to find a bug really fast. It was probably my first night of trying to look for bugs. I found a really low level, low severity vulnerability, and I was able to report that, get that triage, and get that fixed. And that was a super wonderful experience, I would say, even though the bounty was really small, I felt like I was really contributing to the company's security. And that brought me a lot of sense of achievement. I was also in college, so it felt really cool to use, my professional knowledge to earn some money as well and to contribute to the industry while I'm still in school.
Absolutely, absolutely. I did some bug bounting when I was studying as well, except they weren't really called bug bounty then because it's kind of a new field. I feel like that just popped up now with all the bug bounty stuff. But how your first experience was this through just the vulnerability you found on the internet on some random website, or did you go to one of the big bug bounty programs and started looking around there?
So I remember that both Hackerone and Bug Crowd was a thing at that time. I wasn't that early to the bug bounty game. I joined, I think, sort of like mid history of bug bounties. I wasn't one of the OGs who just hunted on Yahoo and Google, right? I
Yeah.
looked for like interesting. So the first night that I started looking, I think I went to one of the big bounty platforms and I started looking for products that I use personally.
Oh,
um, so I started looking for the website that I am interested in since I want to actually have fun doing it. And I didn't really have that much experience with bug bounties at that point. So I didn't want to spend tons of time researching the target either. I just want to quickly feel like I'm making progress in the bug bounty world. So that's why I started looking for some websites that I personally use and I was able to quickly find like a low level. I think it was an authentication bug or something like that, or a business logic flaw in one of the targets that I was hunting on.
that's cool. And how was your? I know a lot of people that, or people that I've talked to over the years. They're like some. like keep doing bug bounties because they have a great first experience reporting a bug to a company, but some people don't have a great experience reporting the bug to a company. But you didn't have any problem reporting the bug to the company, and they were all compliant your first time.
Um, so I did get a lot of informatives and NAs that I disagreed with. But I think in general, bug bounty programs were quite friendly. And one of the programs I worked with was so good that the engineers actually was almost mentoring me through the bug bounty program, right? They were
That's
telling me
awesome.
like, yeah, they were telling me, okay, you need to add this to your report. You need to like develop, a more comprehensive POC, or that this kind of bug actually doesn't work this way. You need to, this is not an indication that the application is vulnerable, these kind of things. So I think that experience specifically helped me grow a lot in the bounty world. And I think, so even now, so I'm working as a security engineer in Instacart, and I suddenly find myself on the other side of bug bounties. Right now, my job actually involves triaging vulnerabilities and giving
Mhm.
feedback to researchers. And I think what I do find is that most engineers do really want to help and bug bounty hunters find bugs in their programs, because it's such a win-win for the company and the bug bounty
Absolutely.
researchers as well. So I do think that there is, like, triagers and engineers, they really mean well and they want to help you really succeed in the program. So I do think that it's good to cultivate this relationship with the engineers as well by staying on the program for longer, and try to, I think a mistake that a lot of beginners make is that they move on from a program very quickly if they don't find any bugs. But
Mhm.
really, the benefits of learning from the engineers, the benefits of finding those deeper and more complicated bugs really come from investing time into a specific program.
So you do application security now. Do you currently do any bug bounties for fun in free time?
Not at the moment, actually. Now, so I just joined Instacart not too long ago, and I very much feel like I'm still getting used to my new job. So now in
Oh,
my free
okay.
time, I want to do something that's not security. I want to do something that's related to my other hobbies, like working out, playing with my dog, and learning different languages. So I would say like now security is I mostly do security just for my job, but I am excited to get back into doing more security research and perhaps more writing or blogging in the future.
It's kind of hard to find that balance sometimes, I feel like, because I've been
Mhm.
working with security for a while, me personally, and also doing like a lot of hobby stuff. But then you also get life interweaving as well, and you want to spend time with your friends, and you want to socialize, and resource intensive to kind of
Yeah,
puzzle all the pieces together.
yeah, that's for sure. And I think when I was working on my book, Bug Bounty Bootcamp, I actually had a full-time job. So after that, I think I was a little burnt out from basically working two full-time jobs. The first one being my actual job for money, and then the second job being writing the book, right? And I was a little burnt out from writing and researching security issues from that. But I think I'm like pretty ready to get back into it. So I'm excited to like
Awesome.
actually start doing security for fun again.
Awesome. Because yeah, that's we touched upon this on the podcast with other guests as well, because it is you need to find the fun part in it as well. You need to find
Yeah.
your vibe in it, so to say.
Yeah, and
Um,
definitely don't overextend yourself with all the projects that you're working on. I think with security people, it's sort of easy to do that, especially for bug bounty people, because it's basically like the more time you put in general, the more bugs and the more vulnerabilities you find, right? So it's really easy to just sit there hacking for 12 hours and not do anything else with your life, which I think is enjoyable sometimes, but not healthy in the long run.
Absolutely. So you touched upon your book there. Let's jump into that rabbit hole. But first off, what made you write the book in the first place? Why did you want to write it?
So the book, for listeners who don't already have an idea, my book, Bug Bounty Bootcamp, is really sort of a book that teaches you how to hack web applications. So you'll learn things like how to perform reconnaissance on a target, how to identify vulnerabilities, and then how to exploit them as well. And the book is really a deep dive into what I learned over the years hunting for bugs on bug bounty programs, and includes a lot of my own experience looking for bugs as well. I started writing bits and pieces of the book in the form of blog posts a few years ago. And that was mainly because I was doing a lot of bug bounty hunting alone. I was doing bug bounty hunting as my full-time job for a while as well. And just in
Hmm.
general, I was sitting in my laptop all day with my only contact with the outside world being my family, my friends, and also the engineers in the bug bounty programs. I really started to lose motivation to hunt because my work was not connecting me to other people. And doing bug bounties alone all day, like 5 to 7 days a week, was really quite lonely. So I started to write my blog to connect with people who might be learning about similar things as I am at that point. I think one of my first blog posts was about SSRF. And I wrote
Mm.
that blog post because that was what I was trying to learn at that time. And I hope that by sharing my methodology and what I learned about SSRF, I can make some friends in the industry. And eventually, I wanted to create a more comprehensive guide for beginners to learn bug bounty, because I realized that a lot of the resources and blog posts online, including my own blog, becomes quite difficult to navigate for beginners, right? You don't really know where to start, which blog post you should read first, and how to progress in the bounty world if you want to keep on learning new things. That's why I wrote my book as a compilation of the things I think would be fundamental for new bug bounty hunters to learn.
Awesome. And how did you kind of pick what vulnerabilities made it into each chapter? And how did you pick the content?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. So that was not like a one-time process where I just sat down and figure out all the vulnerabilities that should be included.
Yeah.
So I started with the vulnerabilities that I personally love and I personally find the most of on websites. And so that's things like IDORs, business logic vulnerabilities, authentication issues. And then I started to research what other bug bounty hunters are finding on web applications, right? So things like process scripting, SQL injections. In the book, I try to balance both the breadth of knowledge and the depth of knowledge. So I try to include as many common vulnerabilities as possible while also diving into the topic deep enough so that readers can actually start exploiting those vulnerabilities once they read the chapter. So I think this final list of vulnerabilities, I'm not sure how many there are, there's maybe like 15 to 20 vulnerabilities in the book, is what I think will help beginners the most. And that if you learn these vulnerability types, you can basically survive on it in terms of bug bounties. You can find tons and tons of bugs by just mastering these bug types.
You touched upon IDOR there, but what was your favorite chapter to write?
That is a good question. I'm not sure if I have an answer to that actually. Maybe I could pick one right now. I have my book over here. I think in general, I enjoyed a lot of the chapters because for each and every one of these chapters, I've had to do a lot of research for, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Before I jumped into writing the chapter in general, I've had some idea of how I should approach it and how the vulnerability works and so on. But there's also a lot of discovery involved as to are there other ways of exploiting these vulnerabilities that I didn't know about? Are there any other kinks that I should mention? Or is the vulnerability changing in some way? Are there any new techniques that I should include in the book that I didn't already know about? So there are a lot of research and discovery involved in every one of these chapters. But I think my favorite chapter might be the template injection one, just because the cool things that I found about template injection and different ways of exploiting template injection, well, that I found while I was writing the book. Like in the template injection chapter, there is a section about how to escape a sandbox by using Python built-in functions, which I thought was really cool. I've
That's
never
cool.
done any research, on the topic before, and because of writing this book, I've had the chance to actually learn about it. And I built like a local sandbox to experiment on, and I tried to escape from that, and then testing everything out, making sure that it works, and then eventually writing it down and actually putting it down into the chapter was a really cool experience.
Awesome. I bet that you learned a lot of interesting things along the way as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. For the vulnerabilities that I don't really have that much experience in as well, I've had to learn from a lot of other hackers' blog posts, and I've had to compile a lot of different research articles on my own as well. So I would say like the book was a major learning experience in terms of web security for myself as well. Although it's a lot of the things that is coming from knowledge that I already have, but a lot of it was not too. A lot of it I actually had to do research on as well. That's why I think that's common for a lot of tech writers, because technology is always changing, right?
Yep.
We often find things that from the last time we've learned it, things have already changed and things have advanced, and there's better ways of doing it now. And the book forced me to really do a lot of research and due diligence into these techniques. Yeah, so that was a really cool experience. And I think that's probably why book writing takes so long. I know a lot of authors who take like 2 3 years to write a small technical book, just because there's so much research and technical work that's actually involved in writing a book. And then there's the writing and editing and refining as well. But researching is really a big part of technical writing.
What is your writing style? How do you do it? Do you write small topics and then elaborate on them and work on multiple chapters at the same time, or are you like, I'm gonna sit down and write one chapter, or what's your preferred writing style?
Let's see. I think I generally start from an outline.
Hmm.
So this is how I write the book. Basically, if I was writing a chapter about IDOR, for example, I would think, what are the major aspects of IDOR that I want to communicate to my reader? So it might be things like the root cause of IDORs, what IDORs are, how to exploit IDORs, and how do you escalate common instances of IDORs in a web application. So I will list down all the topics that I want to write about, and then I just start dumping my thoughts onto the editor, right? I just start writing whatever I wanted about each topic, and then slowly start editing out the things that I don't want. I find that this helps with a lot of cases of writer's block, because if
Yeah.
you can just write freely and not worry about what the reader thinks, it would help your thoughts flow a lot better. And then after that, you can always edit the things that you don't want out and make the language more refined.
Did you edit the book as well?
Yeah, so Nostarch actually has the publisher of my book is Nostarch, and Nostarch has a pretty extensive editing process as well. After I finish a draft, I would send it to one of my editors who will give me ideas and feedback on the structure and the content of the chapter. And then I would come back, I would take it back, fix it, and then send it over again. And this process can really take weeks or months, right? Because there are so many different aspects of a chapter that they are looking at and they are looking to improve on. So first of all, there is like improving the content and the structure of the chapter. Then they also want everything to be technically correct. So they do hire, they did hire me a technical writer, a technical editor to sort of fact check all the information on in the chapter. And then there are several times that you have to send your chapter back to the publisher for copy edit as well. So making sure that the sentences are refined, they make sense, and that they're not confusing or ambiguous in any way. So like coming from a blogging background, I think this experience was really eye-opening to me as to what kind of quality control goes into publishing a good book. And I think the process was great. It found a lot of inconsistencies, mistakes that I had in my first draft, and because of that, the book really became much better book as.
Awesome. And what can you do you have any advice on people that want to write similar books with some kind of how to do it logistically, and maybe your favorite tools and what helped you?
I think I first of all, like my top advice for anyone who wants to write a book is to take it easy. It's gonna be much, much more work than you thought. And just don't pressure yourself on that. I think when I first started, I said to myself, I want to write a book within a year. That did not happen just because of, as I said, there's so many different processes that are involved in producing a good book. It's not just writing and then sending it over to the publisher. So I would say for anyone who wants to write a book, take it easy. It's going to take more time than you thought, and that's okay. Give it maybe 2 years of like nights and weekends of work, and you'll be able to do it. And I think writing a book is the process is pretty similar to writing a blog. So each chapter, just think of it as a blog post and write it as you will a blog post. And then there are, of course, other processes that are involved with writing a book that goes beyond writing, right? Things like picking a publisher, how do you write a book proposal that will get accepted by publishers, and how do you decide on the title of your book, how do you decide on who's going to write the foreword for your book. So all these different decisions is really a topic of a different day. It's something that goes beyond technical writing, technical research, and just blog writing in general.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of pieces as well, because when you finish the
Yeah.
book, then you have this nice piece, but then the work is halfway done because it needs editing and it needs formatting and it needs all this and this and this.
Yes.
You said
That's
that
for
you
sure.
touched upon it as well, like the security field, and especially like bug bounty field, where you need to be able to be aware of a lot of different vulnerabilities, and you need to constantly keep up to date with new techniques and tools. Do you have any plans on doing another edition, updated, in the future, maybe?
Um, Potentially. I don't see the need of it at the moment because I think most of what I said in the book is still very much relevant since it
Yeah,
just came out last year.
absolutely.
But maybe down the road, 5 to 10 years from now, there might be a need for an update. Well, there for sure will be a need for an update. Then I might consider writing another version. Actually, even since the book was published, I've been receiving messages from readers that, okay, this part is outdated, so we're gonna have to change that. And I've been actively working with my publisher to update those informations as well. So future ebooks and reprints will be slowly updated to each year as technology changes.
That's awesome. Yeah, you've been doing a lot of research around bug bounties and vulnerabilities, especially with your book that is out. What's some kind of what's your favorite tools that stuck with you on the way? like
For bug bounties or for writing?
for bug bounties?
I don't really use any tools. I use Burp Suite, community version, and also some of my own scripts. I think the only tool that I would universally recommend to everyone is to learn some sort of programming language so you can automate your processes. Python is a very useful one, and also learn some bash scripting perhaps. And that's gonna really help you build your own tools. I'm a person that doesn't really like to use tools that other people build for bug bounties, just because I do bug bounties for fun mostly at the time, and I want bug bounties to be intuitive and tailor-made for me. So
Awesome.
how I do it is that I sort of write down the steps that I do to find a specific type of bug, and then I try to automate that by scripting it.
I think I made that a note as well in my notes that this process is also very well documented in the book. That as someone new coming into bug bounties or pen testing, that yeah, you need to work out a good workflow on what works for you and how you find vulnerabilities, and then automate it.
Mhm.
Automate. Start shell scripting and bash scripting and learn Python, and
Yeah,
then it
that's for
just
sure.
becomes a lot easier to
Yeah,
expand on that.
for sure. Yeah, and not only does it make it easier, I find that it also helps make bug bounty more enjoyable in a lot of cases because you can automate away the boring things, right? I think for each bug time and for each target, there will be a lot of grunt work that you don't really want to be doing. Things like finding subdomains, um, and things like that. So I think it makes bug bounty more fun by letting you focus on the stuff that actually interests you and challenges.
Exactly. Make it interesting and make it challenging. So if our listeners like they want to get their hands a bit dirty with bug bounties, do you have any like preferred bug bounty programs or any website that you recommend where people can try their first bug bounties and attack real
Um,
world targets?
yeah, I think beginners could probably start with Portswinger Lab. It's basically like an open free lab that people can use to test out test out how to exploit different vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
You can also use over the wire. It's kind of like a CTF site with a really long history, and they have a series of web application exercises that are really simplistic and quite easy for people to get started with. So if you're not looking to start hunting on a real target right away, I would recommend these two. And then once you're ready to start hunting on actual targets, then I recommend was starting with a program that is non-paying. So some nonprofits program or some charity programs. That way, those programs are typically less overpopulated than the others. So there's
Mm-hmm.
more of a chance that you can find vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Do you think like I heard some feedback that talking to a professional bug bounty person that does it full time, and he says it's often very crowded on the big websites, is because all the low hanging fruit gets picked up pretty easily. But maybe like you said now, maybe the solution to that is to start with all the charity ones and the swag only and the non-paying ones to finding low hanging fruit, so to say, that hasn't already been reported.
Yeah, I think so. So how I got started was that um, I found like a few really simple bugs in and really low severity bugs in big programs, and then I couldn't find anything for months.
Huh.
I really went through a dry spell as well, just because the programs are getting crowded and I was just a beginner. And what I did at that point is that I started to hunt on programs that don't pay money, and I started building up my reputation using those
Oh.
programs. after a while, I started getting private program invites. And that's really when I started to make some money from Bug Bounty because those programs tend to be less crowded and easier to find bugs on as well. So, don't just see the non-paying programs as a training ground, right? Those are very valuable programs that can help you grow your reputation on a platform that could eventually lead to private program invites, which could be paid.
Yeah, totally. If we twist the table a bit, and let's say that we're a company and we never heard of bug bounties, but some employees pitching it, would you recommend tech companies to have bug bounties? And do you have any recommending guidelines for those companies on how to do it?
I think I do recommend people having a bug bounty program because it's such a good way of receiving feedback from your users about the vulnerabilities that exist in your platform. But I do think that a bug bounty program can become really hard to maintain if your team is not prepared or if you don't have a good guideline for your team and your bug bounty hunters to follow. So I think the most important thing is to have a really well-defined scope as to what you would and wouldn't pay out for, and use that as a guideline to triage vulnerabilities. So that I think would be my main recommendation. Another recommendation is that really consider the resources that you are putting into the bug bounty program and measure what it's getting back for you. Triaging bug bounty reports is extremely time consuming and can take up hours and hours of a security engineer's time. So make sure that your team is ready to make that investment before opening up your bug bounty program. Finally, always start with private bug bounty programs first. Since private bug bounty programs, you typically just invite hackers who have demonstrated their ability to find bugs already through reputation points. This way, you can make sure that your signal to noise ratio is better and that you're actually getting more valid reports instead of a lot of reports that might be informatives or NAs.
So you would say if a company comes and they want to have a bug bounty, would you say it's best to go with one of the current key players in the space then, and then dry run it as a private one?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's actually quite difficult to get bug bounty operations right, and you can get all the help you need. And the smaller you should start small, and the smaller you can start with, the better, just so that the team doesn't get overwhelmed and you can actually learn and refine the process as you go.
Totally. It makes it a lot easier to do it like that. I helped some company, and I know even our company as well, which I work for. We also have had public bug bounties where we're basically telling the entire internet to, hey, come hack us, and we'll send you some swag. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to keep up bug bounties, both with reviewing what they sent and updating everything and going through guidelines, and it's a lot of work. But I absolutely agree with. I think all companies should, or the majority of companies should, give security researchers a clear way of finding bugs.
Yeah, I think even if you don't have a bug bounty program, it's good to have some sort of vulnerability disclosure guidelines. Because I know a lot of companies, even if they don't run bug bounty programs, they get emails, right, about security vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And it's just good to have a structured way and some rules of engagement for your researchers to follow instead of them, shooting you emails and perhaps like trying to email every single person at your company.
Absolutely. It also provide some kind of what's the term? It's legal harbor as well. It's the term, I think, where you
Yes.
can provide a secure way of or a safe way for anyone to submit vulnerability or security research without without the fear of being sued or
Yeah,
getting a
that's for
police
sure.
report.
That's for sure. Yeah. And it's just a good way of letting your users as well as the researchers know that you do care about the security of your product and that you do keep an eye on these reports coming in, and that if they do find something, it will be taken care of and it won't be ignored.
Absolutely. Acknowledge it. And like you said earlier, at the end of the day, it's just helping the companies, both the security researcher and the company benefit from it. So, Vickie, do you have any future projects that you're currently working on now when the book is released?
In terms of like bug bounties,
In general?
not really. I don't have any like technical projects that are going on in my free time. I think I'm still trying to get back into it after the book. But I mean, I do a lot of other things outside of work, right? I'm trying to learn Farsi. I'm trying to get better at karate, and I'm
Cool.
learning to be a dog parent now. We just got a dog earlier this year, and so we have like at home. I'm learning to be a good dog parent at this point.
Awesome. Hopefully you manage to train it so it doesn't piss and shit inside.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot to do with that as well. So I think I covered all my questions. Is there anything you would like to touch more deeper on, or any further thing you would like to tell our listeners about bug bounties?
I think to our listeners, I think bug bounties are a great way to get started in the infosec industry. It's how I got started pivoting from software engineering into bug bounties. And the experience was really, really rewarding. So definitely give bug bounties a try and see what kind of vulnerabilities you find and see what, find a few bugs on a company's program can take you.
Where can people pick up a copy of your book?
So they can buy it on Nostarch's website, which is nostarch.com, or my book, I think, is widely available in different countries through Amazon and
Cool.
Book Depository as well. But I think nostarch.com and Amazon would be the two best ways to get my book.
Awesome. I will make sure that those are linked in the show notes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Vickie Lee, for coming on Hacker Talk and telling us about Bug Bounty Bootcamp and bug bounties and so many other things. I had a blast, and I'll hope to see you in a future episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on today.
All
And
right.
thanks everyone for listening.
To all our listeners, thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to check out Vickie's book. You will find the link in the show notes. You'll hear me in the future. All the best.